That's a very good question, because right now, even in Barisan Pemuda Adat Nusantara, in the movement that we have among the indigenous youth, we have declared since 10 years ago the homecoming movement, in which all of the youth who left their territories, who went for schools or for jobs, they went back to their community and they started to build their own gardens, or started to build their own ponds, and to restore the forest that has been broken by these companies. And now the movement is very massive, because they want to reclaim the land that has been grabbed before. And for now, people are still fighting. The youth are still fighting right now in the midst of the crisis that we have, even though that the government doesn't really pay attention to the indigenous peoples in Indonesia. But the indigenous youth, together, hand in hand with the elders and the indigenous leaders inside the community, want to make the movement of homecoming movement very massive, even want to promote this movement to the another indigenous peoples in another country, like in Latin America or in the Philippines or another country in Asia.
Actually, that's very interesting, because we have a similar campaign. The concept is similar. We call it Balik Ili. Balik means to go back, and then Ili means community.
Wow.
Yeah, because a lot of the youth or from the communities, they move out of the villages to go and find better opportunities in the cities or the urban places, and that results to a lot of agricultural lands neglected. And so we encourage this Balik Ili program to encourage the youth to go back to their communities, to learn about their indigenous culture, to participate in the local food production, and basically to help in the campaign, especially with the indigenous people's issues, right?
So wow,
that is a very nice campain, really.
We have that same in common,
right? There are actually commonalities when it comes to indigenous people's issues in Asia, Southeast Asia. With the current standing of your organization, BPAN, it's the youth organization in Indonesia. What are the burning or the flashpoint campaigns? What kind of campaigns or issues are you focusing on right now?
Right. So apart from these very small movements that has been done by the indigenous youth, we have the Gerakan Pulang Kampung, the homecoming movement. We have Sekolah Adat, which is the indigenous school, where it is also correlated with the homecoming movement, where the youth just came back and go back to their communities and then become teachers or become practitioners, to practice the local food systems and to teach native languages and to practice their traditional games that they have inside the community. But the main goal of the indigenous people's movement, Gerakan Masyarakat Adat in Indonesia, is to demand to the government to legally acknowledge the indigenous people's rights bill, the Undang-Undang Masyarakat Adat, so it can be achieved and no more criminalizations towards the indigenous peoples in Indonesia, and indigenous peoples in Indonesia can be, they can live freely and peacefully without even having to have a trauma or threat towards living inside their community.
Wow.
Yeah.
We really have a lot of similarities with campaigns in the Philippines. We used to have this indigenous school, it's called, but it's a program practiced or implemented by the indigenous peoples in southern Philippines. It's the Lumad schools. I'm curious if your indigenous schools are also recognized by the Indonesian government?
Well, surprisingly, right now they are working together with the Ministry of Education. So basically, yes, they recognize and they want to empower the existence of the indigenous school, the practitioners, the teachers, the coordinators. They want to give capacity building towards these people who are very paying attention to the indigenous schools, and also because right now in the national curriculum of Indonesia, they are not really giving more hours towards the teaching of the local knowledge, and that is why the existence of the indigenous school will substitute, or not really substitute, but give more like a
emphasis on it.
Emphasis on the existence of the indigenous peoples, because right now we know that indigenous peoples in Indonesia consist of 50 to 70 million people in Indonesia. So it's a very huge number, and we really need to pay attention to this and how to give facilitations and to accommodate the needs of the indigenous peoples to just live and exist in the country with this type of system.
I think that's a really brilliant campaign or a really brilliant program, like initiating this Indigenous school to supplement the cultural curriculum that is lacking in the
Yes.
government's educational curriculum. That's very brilliant. I hope you succeed in everything that you do, and thank you so much for doing this interview with me today, Maishaline. Yes.
Thank you so much for having me too. It's so good to share this
Right.
with you and with our friends.
Yes, we have similar Indigenous issues like mining, energy, monocrop plantation, solidarity.
Solidarity.
See you next time.
See you.